It started when I was visiting Spain last summer. For over a month, I had been crying myself to sleep, losing motivation, and binge watching TikToks in my unmade bed. Then something happened. I began to pay attention to how girls' bodies on TikTok were shaped. I began to compare the shape of their bodies to the shape of my body. I realized how my stomach would expand after a meal. I began to think that if I ate healthier, or I didn't eat as much, I would slim down a bit. In the fall, I began running cross country. Even though I didn't like the sport, I agreed to do it because I knew that exercise burns calories. At the same time, I was doing a musical. Sometimes I would come to rehearsals for the musical and compare how some girls' legs looked to how my legs looked. That's where I realized that I had thick calves and thighs, and I did not like it. That's when I began to eat even less to get skinnier legs. It wasn't working. As a result of me trying to eat less, I began having moments where I would binge eat. Every time I had a moment like that, I would tell myself, why couldn't you have just resisted? By now, I was skipping meals. I had to lie to my parents to convince them I did eat. I would lead my parents out of the room, throw my food in the trash, and tell them I ate the food once they came back in the room. At the cast party for the musical I did, even though I hadn't eaten anything for over 4 hours, the only thing I ate was about half of a cookie. After the musical ended was when things started to take a turn for the worst. My parents began worrying about my eating habits. My friends did too eventually, because one day at lunch, I forgot my food in my locker and decided the situation was a perfect opportunity to skip lunch. When my friend saw me with no food in front of me, she started getting concerned. "You have to eat something," she said. Fast forward to Thanksgiving, I didn't eat anything that morning or afternoon. My dad actually had to tell me about this female singer who died from anorexia. However, I didn't care the slightest bit. I would have rather died skinny than been fat back then. When I went to my friend's house for dinner that night, I made a strict eating rule for myself. I'm only going to eat traditional Thanksgiving foods tonight, I told myself. I succeeded with dinner, but after eating that pie for dessert, I began binge eating. That night, I slapped myself so many times that my face was redder than a tomato. My eating disorder was getting worse every day. One day, I woke up and told myself, I'm not going to eat anything for the whole day. That was probably one of the worst mistakes I've ever made in my life. I felt lightheaded the whole day. My parents got furious with me when I refused to eat, and I just felt horrible mentally. That night, I was so hungry, I dreamt of eating, and that morning when I woke up, I ate all I wanted. That's when my perspective changed. As the weeks went by, I started to realize that I have to learn to accept the way my body looks because it's perfect just the way it is. I've gained a lot of weight in the past few months, but I don't care anymore. I now know I'm healthy and I like my body, no matter how it looks.